So this video is going to walk you really quickly through finding inverses of log functions and exponential functions. But first, we'll do just a quick warm-up about um, log stuff. So if we remember, logs are exponents on the base that get the number in the log. All of these are ln, so they all are base e. So the very first one, if I think e to what power gets me 1, that power is 0. If I think about ln of e, that's e to what power is e, that's going to be 1. The bottom, if I think of ln of e cubed, it's e to what power will get me e cubed, and the power will be 3. So if we keep going, you can pause the video, try the next 3. Welcome back. If we are doing ln of 1 over e squared, well, that's the same as ln of e to the negative 2. So the hidden base of e to what power would get me e to the negative 2, and that would be negative 2. Again, I think e to some power is going to be square root of e, otherwise known as e to the 1/2. So the power, or the answer, will be 1/2. And then down here in the corner, this notation right there is the cube root of e to the 4th, which is the same as e to the 4/3. So e to what power would get me e to the 4/3? And the answer would be 4/3. Okay, so overall lesson, we have all these things. The main one for this is to find the inverse function for a given log function. So we have to think back to how we find inverses. And to find the inverse, you're going to switch x and y and then solve for y. So let's try a couple. If we remember, f of x is our y. So when I switch x and y, this function right here becomes x is 3 to the y plus 4. So now I need to solve for y. So I'm undoing the things done to y in reverse order. So if I had y, I would raise 3 to the y power, and then I would add 4. The first undo is the last do, which is my add 4. So I'm going to subtract 4. Now here's where we come to the tricky part. How do you undo y being the exponent? And so the inverse of exponential is to log. There's really two ways to do this. One way is I can use any base I want, and I can log or ln both sides. We've been using ln, and I could say this is ln of 3 to the y. Why do we do that? Because then I can bring the y down in front, and now the last undo is to divide by ln of 3, because that's just a number. And here's my answer. And that will always work. You undo, when you're trying to find the exponent, you undo by logging both sides with some base, usually ln or log. If we go back up here, a more elegant solution when we're here is, in terms of finding the inverse, is to think the inverse of the exponential equation with base 3 is to turn it into its log equation with base 3. So I would do log base 3 of x minus 4 equals y. That's a little simpler inverse. They are the same thing because if you remember the change of base formula, this one up here, log base 3 of x minus 4 is log base anything. So it could be log or ln. We could say it's ln of x minus 4 over ln of 3, which was our other answer. All right, let's jump to the next one. And again, we're going to switch our x and y. So we have x equals, because f of x is y. So we're going to say x is 2 times 5 to the y minus 3. Again, we're undoing in inverse order of operations. So the first undo is the last do. I would take y, subtract 5, raise 5 to that power, and then multiply by 2. So my first undo is to divide by 2. All right. Now I have to undo y being in the power. Right? I do y minus 3, raise 5 to that power. I undo. So if we think of the short way, I can write this in its exponential version because the inverse of a log is an exponent. My base would be 5 of x over 2 would be y minus 3. Because remember, this base to this power will equal that. That's what our logs do. And so the final step to get y alone is to undo the subtracting 3. And I would say y is log base 5 of x divided by 2 plus 3. So that's what I would get if I would add 3 to both sides. So the inverse of exponential functions will be a log function. Similarly, we can start with a log and find its inverse. So first step, switch x and y. So x equals ln of 3y plus 1. Undo in reverse order. Take y, multiply by 3, do the ln, add 1. Add 1 is the last do, so it is the first undo. Right? So again, think it through. If I had 3 or y times 3, ln of it. So now I am at the point where I have to undo the ln, and to do that we go exponential. And hopefully you remember that ln means there's a little hidden base e, because ln of 3y is the same as log base e of 3y. So as I go exponential, I take my base to the power. Remember this thing over here, logs are powers. So I take the base to the power and I get that 3y. Last undo is to divide by 3. So e to the x minus 1 over 3 is y, which is my inverse function for the logarithmic function that I started with. Okay, one last one. Here I have f of x is 5 log base 4 of x minus 2, so I switch my x and y. Oops, so this will, yeah, this is x is 5 log base 4, y minus 2. My first undo is to divide. My next undo is to get rid of the log, so I go exponential. Here's the base, here's the power, and that will equal y minus 2. And then my last undo is to add the 2 over. So 4 to the x over 5 plus 2 is y. So my f inverse is 4 to the x over 5 plus 2. Hopefully now you'll be able to do your assignment sheet.